Day to you. Good day to you.
Yeah, good day to you too.
Greetings to you. I hope you are fine. Are you doing well?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Myself, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. So we can begin. Quiet, quiet.
So today's
Uh,
topic is
stand
on
up.
body. Yeah, today we'll be learning about the human body systems. So what, how do our bodies work? What systems are there? And what are these types of systems? So we can start with what is a human body system? So this is the different levels of organization. So before there is a body system, there is first a cell. So the cell is considered to be the smallest unit of life. So we all start with a cell, but a singular cell cannot make a human body. It needs to collect together to make a tissue. So these are different levels. You can think of it as different steps to becoming a human being. So when cells gather into tissues, and then the tissues gather into a certain organ, so there are many different types of organs in your body. But this is a heart, for example, and many different tissues, there are many different types of tissues of different types of cells gather to form a certain organ. And then there are multiple organs that form a system. So they work together to form a certain system. And that is the organ system. So that is the different sort of systems that make up the human body. So all of these organ systems, there are multiple of those, which we will discuss today. So before we begin, we need to know some vocabulary words. Um, so first, the body systems. There are all the systems within a living thing that work together to help it survive. So that is the main definition of body systems. And here are three different types of body systems which we will learn today, which you can see in the boxes: circulatory system, respiratory system, and digestive system. So for circulatory system here on the left, um, circulatory means basically going in circle. So it's cycling. So you might ask, what is being cycled? It's the blood. So the blood is being constantly cycled throughout your body. That is why it is called the circulatory system. It pumps blood throughout the body. And second, we will learn about the respiratory system. So respiratory, it simply means your body breathing. So it gets oxygen into your bloodstream. So the respiratory system, it helps to distribute, will get the oxygen from the environment and help it put it into the circulatory system. And then you can see on the right, there is also the digestive system. It can digestive. This first part of the system means to basically take in and break it down. That is to digest. And that allows us to break down food and absorb its nutrients. So that is the main function of the digestive system. So these are the sort of three terms that you need to know for today. And then before we watch the video, we can quickly see that there are multiple systems. Some considered to be 8, some considered to be 9, but um, you can see all these different types of systems, but we'll only consider these 3 that I circled, um, because those are the most important ones. So yeah, we can watch this video, and this video discusses the circulatory system, respiratory system, the digestive system, but it also talks a little bit about the um, muscular system, but you might just want to focus on the first 3. Yeah, so I hope you liked the video. It's a really fun video where they conduct multiple, yeah, experiments. And were there any vocabulary words or concepts that you are still confused um, or didn't understand quite well before we move on? I will talk more about each system in detail in just a little bit, but if there are no questions, I guess I can move on. So, like I've said before, and also in the video, there are 11 types of body systems, but we will focus on just a few, which being these 3, circulatory, respiratory, and digestive. So, starting first with our circulatory system. So the circulatory system consists of your heart and blood vessels. And blood vessels, you can see also in this picture that these are little tubes or channels that carry blood throughout your body. So this is what blood vessels look like. And the heart's job is to pump the blood throughout the body. So you can see the heart being the main source of pumping blood, and it stems off multiple blood vessels to the rest of our body. So, more specifically, the left side of the heart. So this is our left, although it looks like our right, but if you look at our perspective, this is our left, and it takes oxygenated blood from the lungs, and it pumps it to all the rest of our body to use. So our left side is where the blood returns from the lungs and then distributes to the rest of our body. The right side over here is where the heart takes in blood that comes back from the rest of our bodies. And these blood, here I can show you in the next slide. This is a more detailed version of the circulatory system. So you can see on the right, this specific part has the heart. And when it distributes to the rest of our body, you can see these red blood cells carrying oxygen and nutrients. So as the heart pumps blood throughout the body, the white red blood cells carry oxygen and nutrients, and it's exchanged at multiple points in our body. And at these points, of course, oxygen and carbon dioxide is exchanged, nutrients is given to each cell. So they're branched off into these really tiny parts that reaches every part of your body, from the top of your head all the way down to your toenails, and even all the way to your fingertips. So it reaches every part of your body. And then when it returns, it goes back into the right part of our hearts. And some key terms here, some new vocabulary words are veins and arteries. So the veins are the blood vessels that goes back and returns to the heart. Those are veins. And arteries are blood vessels that move away from your heart. So veins, since it returns to the heart, it usually has no oxygen, less oxygen. But for arteries, they're blood vessels that move away from the heart, and they're ready to be distributed to the rest of our body. So it is rich in oxygen and nutrients. But there is a little bit of an exception when it goes to our lungs. So the blood vessel that goes to our lungs, since it moves away from our heart, it's still an artery, but we call it a pulmonary artery. Since it goes to our lungs, you can see here. And it has less oxygen, but once it goes through the lungs, the blood vessels get the oxygen and then moves back into the heart on our left side of the heart through the pulmonary vein. And then it again goes through to the rest of our body. So here is a short video, a little bit like a simulation. It's a really great visualization that you can see the circulatory system at work. So you can see how the
Left atrium
system worked here. So a little bit of a quick reminder of the specific parts it was mentioned in this video. So you can see on this sort of mini diagram, I talked about the right side, but the right side is also mainly composed of two parts. And again, the right side is the part of a heart where the blood returns to the heart. So it has less oxygen. But when it returns, it goes first into the right atrium. So you can see right atrium, and then it goes down to the right ventricle. So when blood returns, goes to the right atrium and then to the right ventricle. Can copy that down if you would like to. Then once it is in the right ventricle, then we've also talked about the pulmonary artery. This is where the blood leaves our heart, but to the lungs. These pulmonary arteries lead to the lungs. So goes to both ends and to our lungs. So this is what leads to the lungs. And then once it leaves and the lungs, they get oxygenated. The red blood cells gets the oxygens from the lungs. O2 is the oxygen gas. And once it gets the oxygen, then it returns back into the heart. So you can see here and later of this video, you can see it goes back. See the arrows into the left side of the heart.
Yes.
Are you guys ready for the next part? Okay. So once
Ready for the next concentration level. Just say it. Just say that you are ready.
okay, so yeah, I hope you guys were able to catch on to the right part where it returns to the right atrium, right ventricle, to the pulmonary artery, then to our lungs. And here we are back into the heart from the lungs into the left atrium. So this is the left part of our heart. And it goes into the left atrium. And then from the left atrium, we move to the left ventricle. You can see it goes from here to here, like that. Also, before we continue, I'd like to note that what the blood vessels that return to our heart is the pulmonary vein. Remember that pulmonary artery is what goes to our heart. That is the name of the main blood vessel that goes to our heart and to our lungs. And from our lungs back into our heart, the main blood vessel is named pulmonary vein. A little bit of vocabulary there. And from the left ventricle, it continues.
Many arteries which carries oxygen.
So here you can see that the oxygenated blood, the blood that contains oxygen, goes to a lot of places, and it goes through this main big blood vessel called the aorta. So this is the part where it stems off into many different small blood vessels. Right? So it branches off into many small parts that reaches like all parts of our body. Since without blood circulating every part of your body, then that part is basically dead. But every part of your body is alive. Not every part, but most of it, which is the part that our blood reaches. So you can imagine how far these bloods reach. So this also goes down to other parts below your heart. Since your heart is like right here, it also reaches the ones in the back, the one below, the one above. It stems off into smaller blood vessels. Then one last thing to clear up before we move on to the other systems
Oxygen
is
join maximum cell.
here's kind of the part that we looked at in the slides. You can see it's kind of similar to this diagram. But this one, I didn't talk about, which are capillaries. So we already talked about arteries moving away from our heart and veins returning to our heart. But where the oxygen exchange occurs in our bodies are at capillaries. So these are really, really small and thin blood vessels where almost singular red blood cells go through each one, and it's the part where oxygen is exchanged. So the red blood cells that carry oxygen and nutrients, it goes into the capillaries and it gives the oxygen to a cell. This is a cell. And the cell gives back carbon dioxide. This is a gas that it returns back. So it gives oxygen gas, and the cell returns carbon dioxide gas. And the little red blood cells are carried back into our heart. So it does not have oxygen anymore. It has carbon dioxide, and it has less oxygen. And you can see this cycle sort of repeats as it goes through our lungs. Arteries, capillaries, and then veins. So yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about for the circulatory system. So let's move on. Next is the respiratory system, which I've covered most of it already by talking about the circulatory system. The circulatory system and respiratory system are linked together quite well. So the respiratory system, so the main part are the lungs, and it's the lungs' job to bring air into and out of the body. So it expands and relaxes. It gets an oxygen and it exhales, releases carbon dioxide. And oxygen from the air you inhale, take in, moves through small blood vessels and enters the bloodstream, since it's the main system that provides oxygen for the blood. Then the oxygen, like we have seen, it is carried by the red blood cells. You can see the red blood cells carrying the oxygen and then travels to the rest of our body, which we've looked at in the circulatory system. But here you can see the oxygen mainly through our nose, and you can see it goes down the trachea, which is kind of like this channel in your neck, and it goes down all the way to both our lungs. But here I wanted to focus a little bit on the specific parts of the lung. You can see that these little buds. You can see these tiny little buds in our lungs. They're called alveoli. So a little bit of vocabulary, but you can see that each blood channels reaches the alveoli, and here is where they take in oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. This is where the red blood cells exchange gas. These are called alveoli. These are the small parts in our lungs where we actually exchange oxygen. So this is how the gas exchange works. last system that we will talk about is the digestive system. So the main purpose of the digestive system is to provide energy for our body. The digestive system provides energy, and it first begins when we break food down into little pieces in our mouth with the help of teeth, the tongue, and saliva. The first step is your mouth. When you chew your food, and that's the first part that breaks it down a little bit. For your stomach, which is our next step to make it easier for the stomach for it to digest further. So the food, after you chew it, swallow it, it goes down into the stomach. You can see on the right, where it's further broken down by stomach acid. Stomach acid is very strong. It melts down sort of like all the foods that you eat. It breaks down even further, make it sort of mushier. And then the next step is from the stomach. It's headed to the small intestines. So here, your body removes nutrients it needs from the food and sends the nutrients to parts of the body through the circulatory system. So the small intestine you can see in this picture on the right. You can see all of these like tangled tubes. All of this is the small intestines. So after the stomach, it goes down into the small intestines, and this is where the nutrients are absorbed. You can see it goes down this long, long path of the small intestines. Nutrients are absorbed. And finally, the digested food is sent to the large intestines. Here, this bigger part is the large intestines, and then, of course, out of the body. So this is how the digestive system works. Again, its main purpose is to provide energy, provide nutrients for our blood to carry. And you can notice, as a final note, that all these systems work together. So this is the main message I want to deliver. So we've talked about circulatory, respiratory, and digestive. You can see all these systems working together in this little diagram that I created. So reviewing, we know that the heart, the blood vessels return to the heart by the veins. And then, does anyone remember the first part of a heart where the blood cells go through when it returns to the heart? Does anyone know what the first part is when blood returns to the heart? I can quickly show you.
You know that he's asking you questions. No. You don't know. How would you know? No. This kind of students, how would you know? Just level 0.
So I put a little picture here, like a diagram, but I just want to make sure, did you guys learn this before? Or is this completely new?
It's asking that have you learned it before or is the first time? You've not learned the heart. No. Only which one? You've learned the heart. No. You've learned the rest except the heart. Yes. Okay. Jamie, I hope you can hear them.
Okay. I heard some of them
Jamie.
have learned, but it's...
Jamie.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
They mean they've learned the other systems except the circulatory system.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that,
Except
please?
the heart.
Oh, okay.
For the heart, they don't know anything about it.
Okay, so we might need a little bit of a quick review. So here, sort of reviewing, I asked about which part the blood cells go through first when it goes into the heart from the veins. So this is the sort of question here. So the vein, you guys remember the vein is the blood vessel that returns to our heart. So here, so it goes
I hear what you say.
our organs and into this part. And then, does anyone know what the first part is? This part?
It's asking what is the part of that? What is the part over there?
Yes, I heard right atrium. Yes, that is right. Can anyone tell me the next part that the blood goes through? After the right atrium, or is it... Yes, I heard right ventricle. Yes, that is right. It goes to the right ventricle here. This little part. And then it goes to... Do you know what this part is called? This main blood vessel that goes to our lungs. The pulmonary artery. So it goes into the lungs. These are called pulmonary artery. And let me quickly... the ones that goes out of the lungs, pulmonary vein. And then enters into the heart.
You understand what you say? You don't. You say that when the blood is moving from the heart or going out from the heart. It passes through the pulmonary artery. And when it's coming into the heart, it passes through the pulmonary vein.
Yes, that is right. And when it goes back into the heart is the pulmonary vein. And does anyone know the next part that it goes through? Yes, that's right. It goes to the left atrium. And then the next part? Yes, that's right. Into the left ventricle. Always remember that the left part of our heart is where the blood is distributed to the rest of our body, and the right part is where the blood is received to our heart. It goes from the rest of our body into our heart in our right side, and on our left side, it is the part where the heart releases its blood to the rest of our body. And after the left ventricle, the final part, does anyone know the next part it goes through? Yes, that's right. Aorta. That is correct. So it's here. So aorta is the largest artery in our body. So this is the main artery, the biggest artery that it stems off to the rest of our body. So it has to be large. And yeah, this was a quick review of the heart and the circulatory system is a really big, a little complicated system, but I hope you guys were able to learn something new and hopefully you can use it in the future as well. So,
Yes.
okay. I'd like to give you a little bit more about the respiratory system. Let me see here. And here, I hope you guys can see the lungs. And then this is to better understand the respiratory system. So there is the air that we breathe in, the outside. And then it goes down through our nose, first part, and goes through our trachea or like the windpipe. So this is a channel that carries air down into our lungs. This is the respiratory system. So it goes into both sides, either side of our lungs, since we have two, left and right. They are almost identical. They serve the same purpose. But for example, on the left side here, you can see that it stems off into these tiny parts of the lungs. This is where the oxygen is exchanged. Does anyone remember the name of this part? It's okay if you don't remember, let me write it down. called alveoli. So these tiny buds you can see are called alveoli. It's good to remember since it branches off into these tiny parts, into these tiny buds. See these circular things? And this is the part where our, remember, our pulmonary arteries. They are the arteries that goes from our heart into our lungs, and they cross each alveoli. You can see the blood vessels that are on the alveoli. See all these blood vessels that are on the alveoli, and this is a close-up picture right here at the right bottom. A little bit of typo, but here it is. But here you can see on the right, this is our blood vessel that goes through our lungs, and this is a close-up picture of the alveoli, to each buds, and you can see these individual red blood cells. All these red blood cells that are in our blood, carbon dioxide here is diffused across sort of like a membrane into the alveoli, and it is removed from our bodies through our lungs, and you can see the oxygens that are going in. The oxygens go in to our blood cells. So once the blood cell lacked oxygen, it did not have much. It had rather high concentration of carbon dioxide, but later in these alveoli, the carbon dioxide is diffused into these alveoli and out of our bodies, and the red blood cells now have high concentration of oxygen. So we call this oxygenated blood because it has a lot of oxygen. And remember, after oxygen exchange occurs, this is an oxygen exchange where gas is exchanged, and then it goes back into our hearts. Remember what the part is called? From our lungs to our heart? So here, it's the pulmonary vein. That is the part that returns to our heart into the left atrium. So again, once oxygen exchange occurs in these alveoli, it returns to our heart through the pulmonary vein. This was a short review of the respiratory system, and yeah, this will be the end of the review, sort of like a quiz, but we will not go through the quiz since we did a lot of review. We will end here, but do you guys have any more questions about today's lesson?
Any questions? Come and ask. Let's stand up and let me come and ask this question. Stand up and let the person come and ask. Jennifer, I come here. I come and ask.
What is the meaning of muscular build?
Okay.
Sorry,
Keep quiet.
can you repeat the question,
Ask a
please?
question. I'm not sure.
What is the meaning of muscular build? What is the meaning of muscular build?
Oh, so you're curious about the muscular system? Is that correct? Do you mean this muscular system? I didn't talk about it today, but this was kind of in the video. Muscular system is composed of muscles, every part of our body, and even our heart has muscles. So they're called cardiac muscles. So every part that requires us to sort of move and work needs to have muscles. So muscular system are really closely connected with skeletal system. And it works with our bones together with our muscles for us to move. The video also talked about biceps and triceps in our arms, quads and hamstrings in our legs, but those are specific parts of the muscular system. But all you need to know for today is that muscular system is composed of muscles, and it reaches every part of your body that requires you to move, and it is closely connected to the skeletal system, which is our bones, basically. Yeah, I hope that was clear. I hope I explained the muscular system. Okay.
Any other
Are there
question?
any other questions?
Any other question? You have a question? Come and ask.
Or are there any other parts that you want to learn more about? Maybe you're curious about certain parts. Maybe you want to learn more about that. Yeah, please let me know right now. Yeah, if you have any.
Said if you want to learn more about this, you should let him know.
Okay.
About what? About the heart. About what you are supposed to do, that's what you got. What do you want? Ecosystem. Solar system.
Ecosystem.
Maybe can you hear your people?
Now, I can't say it. Make it good, yeah. Solar system.
Yeah, okay. So I heard a lot of ecosystem and solar system, but my plan
No,
is
solar system.
my plan is to go through each body system and parts of our body before
Solar
we
system.
move on to ecosystems and solar systems. 이거는 별로 관심. Yeah, if there are this topic, yeah, I will consider your interests, and I will definitely make this system, but not for next week. Next week will be on properties of matter. So we are kind of going back and forth between the human body and sort of like biology in general and chemistry, involving chemicals, matter. So we're going kind of back into like a field of chemistry, back into learning about properties of matters next week. And the law of conservation of matter also. And then I think you also have the schedule, but the following week is energy transfer, and then water cycle and ecosystem, which you guys are interested. We will be learning about ecosystems in a couple weeks. So yeah, that's all I have to say for today.
You hear what he said? He said next week you'll be learning about properties of matter. Okay. But he has also mentioned about some topics, and the ecosystem is part. Okay. That will be shifted to maybe some few weeks after next week. Okay. Yeah. That is what he was trying. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see all of you next week, and I'll put.
Maybe I hope that's correct.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Okay.
And yeah, I hope you guys like next week's topic. Really fun. So. I'll see you next week. And if you don't have any other questions.
All right. All right. Have a nice day.
Yeah, you
Have a nice day. Have a nice day. So it means, yeah, he's waving you. Hey. Oh, Nathan is waving you. Come and wave me. Hey, my people. Wave JB.
Bring my bread. Oh. Blow my bread.